The morning sun cast long shadows across the fields of New Haven Colony. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his porch watching his 10-year-old twins, Alex and Emma, run toward the school transport. Their backpacks bounced as they raced each other. Down the dirt path. "Don't forget your lunch." Dr. Lisa Morrison called from the kitchen door. She held 2 small bags in her hands. The children skidded to a stop and ran back to grab their food. "Thanks, Mom," Alex said with a grin. His sister Emma just smiled and gave her mother a quick hug. Jake watched them climb into the transport with the other colony children. Sam Rodriguez waved from a window seat. The 12-year-old boy was always excited about school trips. Katie. William sat quietly in the back, reading a book like she always did. Danny Chun was showing something to the other kids, probably another of his clever inventions. "They grow up so fast," Lisa said, joining her husband on the porch. Jake nodded. "Hard to believe we've been here 15 years already. Feels like yesterday we were just starting this place." New Haven was a good world for families. The air was clean, the soil was rich, and there were no dangerous animals. 300 families called it home now. Most of them were farmers, teachers, and doctors who wanted a peaceful life away from the crowded cities of Earth. The transport disappeared over the hill, heading toward the agricultural dome, where the children would spend the day learning about crop rotation and soil management. It was a normal Tuesday morning on a quiet farming world. High above the planet, something moved in the darkness of space. War Commander Thesic stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the small human world through the viewing screen. His yellow eyes studied the peaceful settlements below. The reptilian officer's tongue flicked out to taste the air, a habit when he was thinking. "Such a small world," said his second-in-command, Subleader Vrak. "Why does the Empire want these humans?" Thesic's scales rippled, showing his amusement. "Because they are soft, Vrak. They care too much about their young ones. Watch how they react when we take what they love most." The Zephyrian Empire had been watching human colonies for months. They had learned that humans were different from other species. Most races would trade territory or resources to protect their offspring. But humans seemed to have an unusual attachment to their children that the reptilian minds could not fully understand. "Signal the assault teams," Thesic ordered. "Begin the harvesting." 3 smaller ships broke away from the main vessel, their hulls black against the stars. They moved silently toward the planet's surface, invisible to the simple sensors the colonists used. At the agricultural dome, 23 children walked between the rows of corn and wheat. Their teacher, Mrs. Brown, explained how the plants grew in the carefully controlled environment. The dome was large enough to hold several football fields, with a clear ceiling that let in the morning sunlight. "The soil here is different from Earth soil," Mrs. Brown said. "We have to add special nutrients to make the plants grow properly." Alex Morrison raised his hand. "My dad says the first colonists almost starved because they didn't know how to farm here." "That's right, Alex. It took 3 years to figure out the right way to grow food on New Haven." Emma was more interested in the butterflies that flew around the flowers. The colony had brought earth insects to help pollinate the crops. She watched a yellow butterfly land on a tomato plant and smiled. Danny Chun was examining a strange device he had built from spare parts. It beeped softly and flashed a red light. "That's weird," he said to Sam Rodriguez. "This thing is supposed to detect radio signals, but it's going crazy." "Maybe it's broken," Sam suggested. "No, it's working fine. There's something out there broadcasting on military frequencies." The 2 security guards who always accompanied school trips were standing near the dome's entrance. Officer Pete Johnson was a former soldier who had come to New Haven to raise his own family. Officer Mary Parker was younger but well-trained. Both carried simple energy weapons, more for show than because they expected trouble. "Kids, stay close to Mrs. Brown," Officer Johnson called out. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. The attack came without warning, The dome's main door exploded inward. Smoke and debris filled the air as dark shapes moved through the opening. The Zephyrian soldiers were 7 feet tall, covered in green scales, and armed with advanced weapons that hummed with energy. Officer Johnson reached for his weapon, but never had the chance to draw it. A blue beam of light struck him in the chest, and he collapsed without a sound. Officer Parker managed to fire once before she too was cut down by the alien invaders. "Run!" Mrs. Brown shouted, pushing the children toward the emergency exits, but there was nowhere to go. More Zephyrian soldiers appeared at every door. They moved with cold efficiency, surrounding the terrified humans. Their weapons remained ready, but they did not fire at the children. "Please don't hurt them," Mrs. Brown begged, stepping in front of her students. "They're just children. Take me instead." The lead soldier ignored her words. He spoke into a communication device attached to his armor, using harsh sounds that the humans could not understand. 2 other soldiers grabbed Mrs. Brown and dragged her aside. "Stay together," Alex whispered to his sister. "Dad always said to stay together if something bad happens." Emma nodded, too scared to speak. Around them, the other children huddled close. Katie Williams was crying quietly. Sam Rodriguez looked angry but knew better than to fight armed aliens. Danny Chun still held his device, which was now beeping frantically. The Zephyrian soldiers began herding the children toward the broken door. They worked quickly and without emotion, like farmers gathering livestock. Any child who moved too slowly was pushed forward by a scaled hand or the barrel of an energy weapon. "Where are you taking us?" Sam demanded. The soldier nearest to him turned its yellow eyes toward the boy, but said nothing. The aliens did not seem interested in conversation. Outside the dome, a transport ship waited on the grass. It was larger than anything the colonists had ever built, with a hull that seemed to absorb light. The children were forced up a ramp and into a holding area lined with metal benches. The ship lifted off immediately, rising through New Haven's atmosphere toward the stars. Through small windows, the children could see their world growing smaller below them. In the colony's command center, alarms began to sound. The automated systems had detected the attack on the agricultural dome. Captain Jake Morrison received the emergency signal just as he was reviewing supply reports. "What's the situation?" he asked as he ran into the communications room. "Unknown vessels landed at the dome," reported Lieutenant Tom Davis. "We've lost contact with the security team and the school group." Jake's blood turned to ice. His children were at the dome. "Get me a connection to the site, now." But there was no response from the dome. The communication equipment had been destroyed in the attack. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from one of the unknown ships," Davis said. Jake grabbed the microphone. "This is Captain Morrison, commander of New Haven Colony. Identify yourself." The voice that answered was cold and inhuman. "Your young ones are now property of the Zephyrian Empire. You have 48 hours to prepare your surrender. Resist and watch them die." The transmission ended, leaving only static. Jake stood frozen for a moment, processing what he had just heard. Then he activated the colony's emergency beacon, sending a distress signal toward Earth and the other human worlds. His children were gone. All of their children were gone. The Zephyrians had no idea what they had just started. The emergency beacon from New Haven reached Earth in 6 hours. The message was simple but terrible. 23 human children had been taken by an alien species called the Zephyrians. The colony demanded immediate military response. President Helen Ross sat in the Oval Office, reading the report for the 3rd time. Her hands shook slightly as she set the papers down. She had grandchildren of her own, and the thought of them being taken by aliens made her stomach turn. "How fast can we get ships to New Haven?" she asked General Paul Martinez, the head of Earth's military forces. "The nearest fleet is 3 days away," Martinez replied. But ma'am, we should think carefully about this. We don't know anything about these Zephyrians. They might be more advanced than us. President Ross stood up and walked to the window. Outside, children were playing in the park across from the White House. Their laughter could be heard even through the thick glass. General, I want every available ship heading towards Zephyrian space within 12 hours. And activate Protocol 7. Martinez's face went pale. Protocol 7 had not been used in over a century. It meant total war, with no possibility of surrender or negotiation. Ma'am, are you sure? Protocol 7 means. I know exactly what it means, Ross interrupted. Those aliens took our children. They're about to learn why that was the biggest mistake in their species' history. 3 star systems away, Admiral Ryan Carter was having dinner with his staff when the message arrived. The 50-year-old commander had fought in border wars against pirates and hostile aliens, but he had never seen anything like the orders that appeared on his communication screen. His aide, Colonel Janet Murphy, read the message over his shoulder. Sir, this says that your daughter Megan was among the children taken. Ryan's fork clattered to his plate. Megan was 15, visiting New Haven as part of a student exchange program. She was supposed to be safe on a peaceful farming world, making friends and learning about colonial life. How many ships do we have ready for combat? Ryan asked quietly. 12, sir. The dreadnought UHS Vengeance, 4 cruisers, and 7 destroyers. Get them ready to move. We leave in 2 hours. Colonel Murphy had served with Admiral Carter for 8 years. She had seen him angry before, but never like this. There was something cold and terrifying in his eyes now. Sir, shouldn't we wait for orders from Earth Command? Ryan stood up from the table. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but every person in the room heard him clearly. Colonel, they took my daughter. They took our children. I don't need orders from Earth to know what has to be done. On the research station orbiting Mars, Dr. Marcus Webb received an urgent request for information about the Zephyrian Empire. As the colony's leading expert on alien species, he had studied every known race in the galaxy. The Zephyrians were mentioned in his files, but only briefly. Webb worked through the night, gathering everything he could find. The Zephyrians were an old species, maybe older than humans. They had built an empire that controlled dozens of star systems. They were known for taking slaves from other worlds and selling them in galactic markets. What worried Webb most was how they thought. Zephyrians were reptiles, cold-blooded in every sense. They did not form emotional bonds like mammals did. 2. Them, offspring, were just another resource to be used or traded. They don't understand what they've done, Webb said to his assistant, Dr. Nancy Foster. They think humans will react like other species. Trade some territory or resources to get the children back. But we won't, will we? Nancy asked. Webb shook his head. Humans are different. We're mammals. We're pack animals. When you threaten our young, you trigger instincts that go back millions of years. The Zephyrians just turned every human in the galaxy into their enemy. In space, ships began moving towards Zephyrian territory from dozens of different systems. The cargo ship Lucky Star changed course and headed for the nearest military base to volunteer for service. The luxury liner Golden Dreams offered to carry supplies for the fleet. Even small personal spacecraft began forming groups, ready to join the fight. Captain Tony Garcia commanded the stealth ship UHS Shadow. His mission was to gather intelligence about enemy positions, but when he heard about the children, everything changed. His own sister Maria served on his ship as a lieutenant, and she had friends on New Haven. Sir, we're receiving volunteers from everywhere, reported Sergeant Kevin Murphy from the communications station. Merchant ships, passenger liners, even some civilian craft want to help. Tony studied the star charts on his screen. The Zephyrian Empire controlled a large area of space, but their forces were spread thin. If humans could hit them fast and hard, They might rescue the children before the aliens could react. Kevin, send a message to all volunteer ships. Tell them to form up with the nearest military fleet. We're going to need every ship we can get. On New Haven, Captain Jake Morrison paced the floor of the command center. It had been 18 hours since his children were taken, and he felt like he was losing his mind. His wife Lisa sat nearby, her face pale but determined. Any word from the other colonies? Jake asked Lieutenant Tom Davis. Yes, sir. Every human world is sending ships. The fleet from Alpha Centauri will be here in 2 days. The Mars Defense Force is already on its way. Jake nodded, but it didn't make him feel better. 2 days felt like forever when his children were in the hands of alien slavers. Sir, Davis continued, we're also getting reports from across the galaxy. It seems like humans everywhere are mobilizing. This isn't just about our colony anymore. Dr. Lisa Morrison looked up from her medical supplies. She had been preparing emergency equipment in case they found the children injured. They made a mistake, she said quietly. What do you mean? Jake asked. The Zephyrians. They think they took 23 children from one small colony, but they actually declared war on the entire human race. The communication system crackled to life. Admiral Carter's voice filled the room. New Haven Colony, this is Admiral Carter commanding Battle Group 7. We'll be in your system in 36 hours. Hold tight, Captain Morrison. We're coming. To get our kids back. Jake grabbed the microphone. Admiral, thank you. What do you need from us? Just stay ready, Captain. And make sure you have every piece of information about these Zephyrians. When we find them, we're going to hit them with everything we have. After the transmission ended, Jake and Lisa sat in silence for a moment. Then Lisa spoke. Jake, I've been thinking about what the alien commander said. He called our children property, like they were things to be bought and sold. Jake's hands clenched into fists. I know. He has no idea what human parents will do to protect their children. Does he? No, Jake said. But he's about to find out. Across human space, the same conversation was happening in military headquarters, family homes, and government buildings. The Zephyrian Empire had existed for over 1,000 years. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved millions of beings, but they had never met humans before. They had never learned the most important rule about dealing with Earth's children. If you want to see what humans are really capable of, threaten their young ones. The galaxy was about to get a very violent education in human nature, in the depths of space. War Commander Thesic reviewed reports from his intelligence officers. They told him that human ships were moving throughout the galaxy, but he was not worried. Humans were just another species, and all species could be broken if you applied the right pressure. Sir, our scouts report that over 200 human vessels are heading toward our territory, Subleader Vrak reported. Thesic's tongue flicked out to taste the air. Let them come. When they see what happens to species that oppose the Empire, they will submit quickly enough. He had no way of knowing that he had just made the second biggest mistake of his life. The first had been taking the children. The first human ships arrived at the edge of Zephyrian space 48 hours after the children were taken. What they found shocked even the most experienced military commanders. Admiral Ryan Carter stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, staring at the sensor readings. 3 Zephyrian worlds were already under attack by human forces that had arrived ahead of his fleet. The aliens were fighting back, but they were losing badly. Sir, we're getting reports from all across the sector, reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Brad Thompson. Human fleets are hitting Zephyrian positions everywhere. This isn't a rescue mission anymore. It's a full invasion. Ryan nodded grimly. Any word on where they're keeping the children? Our intelligence ships are working on it, sir. Captain Garcia's stealth team is deep in enemy territory now. Captain Tony Garcia crouched in the cargo hold of his ship, checking his equipment one more time. The UHS Shadow had slipped past 3 Zephyrian patrol fleets to reach the heart of enemy space. Now they were preparing to board a captured alien transport to gather information. "You sure about this, Tony?" asked his sister, Lieutenant Maria Garcia. She was loading her weapon with special rounds designed to work against alien armor. "We need to find those kids," Tony replied. "Every hour that passes, they get moved further away from us." Sergeant Kevin Murphy finished setting up the boarding. "Equipment, ship's ready, sir." "The transport looks like it's carrying prisoners to the slave markets on Kepler 7. Tony's jaw tightened. Kepler 7 was a fortress world deep in Zephyrian territory. If the children were there, getting them out would be almost impossible. Let's go find out what these lizards know. The boarding action was swift and brutal. Tony's team cut through the transport's hull and stormed inside. The Zephyrian crew fought back, but they were not prepared for the fury of human soldiers whose children had been taken in the ship's databanks. They found what they were looking for. The children from New Haven were indeed being held on Kepler 7, in a facility called the Processing Center. They were being prepared for sale to the highest bidder in the galaxy's slave markets. "How long do we have?" Maria asked as she read the files. "According to this, the auction is in 6 days, Kevin replied. "After that, the kids get scattered across the galaxy. We'll never find them all." Meanwhile, on Kepler 7, the children were learning harsh lessons about survival. They had been locked in a large cell with other young prisoners from different worlds. The conditions were terrible, but they were alive. Alex Morrison had become the unofficial leader of the human children. At 10 years old, he was not the oldest, but he was the calmest under pressure. His father had taught him basic military thinking, and he was using those lessons now. "We need to stay strong," he told the others during their daily meal of thin soup and stale bread. "Our parents are coming." "I know they are." His twin sister Emma nodded. She had been keeping track of their guards' routines, memorizing when they changed shifts and which doors they used. "The tall guard with the scar always comes at the same time," she whispered. "He's slower than the others." Sam Rodriguez, the 12-year-old from the colony, had been making friends with some of the alien children in their cell. "The blue-skinned girl says there are other humans in the facility," he reported. "Adults who were captured from merchant ships." Danny Chun still had his small device hidden in his clothes. The guards had not bothered to search the children carefully, thinking they were harmless. "I've been picking up signals," he said quietly. "Military communications." "Human military communications." Katie Williams, usually quiet and shy, spoke up. "What kind of signals?" "Attack plans," Danny grinned. "They're coming for us." In the cell next to them, a group of adult humans watched the children with amazement. These were merchants and traders who had been captured months ago. They had given up hope of rescue long ago. "Those kids have more courage than grown soldiers," whispered Captain Bill Rogers, a freighter pilot from the outer colonies. "They're not just surviving, they're planning." The children's hope was not misplaced. Admiral Carter's battle fleet had reached the outer edge of the Kepler 7 system, and what they found there made even veteran space officers angry. The fortress world was surrounded by defense stations and patrol fleets. But more importantly, it was the center of the galaxy's slave trade. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds were being held there, bought and sold like cattle. "Sir, we're detecting over 50,000 prisoners on the surface," reported the sensor officer. "Most of them are children." Ryan felt sick. They had come to rescue 23 human kids, but they had found something much worse. The Zephyrians were not just slavers. They were the biggest slavers in the galaxy. "Get me a channel to Earth Command," Ryan ordered. President Ross appeared on the screen within minutes. "Admiral, what's your status?" "Ma'am, we found the children. But we also found something else. This whole system is one giant slave market. There are thousands of kids here from all over the galaxy. The president's face went hard. Then we saved them all. Ma'am, that's going to require a major assault. The defenses here are massive. Admiral, you have full authority to do whatever is necessary. Save our children, and save every other child you can find. The transmission ended, and Ryan turned to his staff. You heard the president. We're not just rescuing our kids anymore. We're shutting down the biggest slave operation in the galaxy. But the direct assault presented a terrible problem. The processing center where the children were held was heavily fortified and surrounded by automated defense systems. If the human fleet attacked directly, the Zephyrians might kill the prisoners rather than let them be rescued. Ryan needed a better plan. That's when Captain Garcia contacted him with an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. Admiral, my team has been studying the fortress layout. There's a way to get inside without triggering the main defenses. I'm listening. The facility has a waste processing system that connects to the main prison complex. It's too small for a full assault team, but a small group could get in and disable the security systems. How small a group? Maybe a dozen people. It would be a suicide mission, sir. Once they're inside, there's no way out until the main assault begins. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would be talked about in military academies for generations. Captain Garcia, prepare your team. But you're not going alone. Sir, I'm coming with you. Those are our children in there, and I'm not sending anyone to do something I wouldn't do myself. On the surface of Kepler 7, War Commander Thesic was beginning to realize that he had made a terrible mistake. Reports were coming in from across the Empire. Human fleets were attacking everywhere, and they were not following normal military tactics. Sir, the humans are not trying to capture territory, Subleader Vrak reported. They are destroying everything. Military bases, government buildings, even civilian targets. It's like they want to wipe us out completely. Thesic studied the tactical reports. The humans were fighting like a species that had been driven insane. They took no prisoners, accepted no surrenders, and showed no mercy to anyone who had been involved in the slave trade. How many of our worlds have fallen? Thesic asked. 17, sir. And the attacks are getting worse. The humans seem to have unlimited ships and weapons. For the first time in his long military career, Thesic felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The Empire had existed for over 1,000 years, but in just 3 days, it was falling apart. Sir, should we try to negotiate with them? Thesic's tongue flicked out to taste the air. He could smell his own fear, and it disgusted him. Send a message to their fleet commander. Tell him we are willing to return the human children in exchange for a ceasefire. The message was sent, but Admiral Carter's response was swift and brutal. You should have thought of that before you took them. The channel went dead, leaving Thesic alone with the knowledge that his empire was doomed. The humans were not interested in negotiation. They wanted revenge, and they were going to get it in the processing center. The children heard the distant sound of explosions as the orbital battle began. Alex Morrison looked up at the ceiling, where dust was falling from the vibrations. That's our people, he said with certainty. They came for us. Emma smiled for the first time since they had been captured. Dad always keeps his promises. The rescue was about to begin. The rescue began at midnight, Kepler 7 time. While Admiral Carter's main fleet engaged the orbital defenses in a massive space battle, 12 humans crawled through the waste processing tunnels beneath the processing center. Admiral Ryan Carter led the infiltration team himself. Behind him came Captain Tony Garcia, Lieutenant Maria Garcia, Dr. Marcus Webb, and 8 other volunteers. Each person carried enough weapons and explosives to arm a small army. Remember, we have exactly 30 minutes to disable the security systems before the main assault begins, Ryan whispered into his radio. After that, this whole place becomes a war zone. The tunnels were dark, wet, and filled with terrible smells. But none of the humans complained. They were here to save their children, and they would crawl through hell itself if necessary. Above them, the space battle raged with incredible fury. Human ships attacked the Zephyrian defenses from all directions, drawing attention away from the infiltration team. Captain Jake Morrison had arrived with a volunteer fleet from New Haven, determined to help rescue his own children. "All stations, this is Morrison." Jake's voice crackled over the radio. "I want every gun on that fortress. Make them too busy to think about the prisoners." The UHS Vengeance, Admiral Carter's flagship, traded massive energy blasts with a Zephyrian battle station. Lieutenant Brad Thompson watched the tactical display as more human ships arrived every minute. "Sir, we're detecting over 300 human vessels in the system now," he reported to the acting commander. "Ships are still coming through the jump points." In the tunnels below, Dr. Webb used his knowledge of alien technology to guide the team through the facility's layout. "The main security center should be 50 meters ahead," he whispered. "Once we control that, we can unlock all the prison cells." They moved in complete silence, using hand signals to communicate. Each person knew that one mistake would doom not only the mission, but all the children they had come to save. The security center was guarded by 2 Zephyrian soldiers. They never saw the humans coming. Captain Garcia and his sister Maria took them out with silent weapons, clearing the way for Dr. Webb to access the control systems. "I'm in," Webb whispered as his fingers flew over the alien controls, disabling the automated defenses now. Throughout the processing center, locked doors began to open. Prison cells that had been sealed for months suddenly clicked open. Thousands of prisoners, including the human children, found themselves free. For the first time since their capture in Cell Block 7, Alex Morrison heard the lock on their door make a strange sound. He pushed against it carefully, and it swung open. "Emma, Sam, everyone get up," he whispered urgently. "The door's open." The children had been ready for this moment. Over the past few days, they had planned exactly what to do if they ever got the chance to escape. Emma led them toward the emergency stairs she had memorized, while Danny Chun used his device to detect any guards nearby. "I'm picking up human radio signals," Danny reported quietly. "They're in the building with us." In another cell block, the adult prisoners were helping organize the escape. Captain Bill Rogers, the freighter pilot, had found a supply room filled with emergency equipment. "Kids first," he told the other adults. "We get the young ones out, then we worry about ourselves." But the Zephyrians were not going to let their valuable prisoners escape without a fight. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility as guards rushed to contain the breakout. War Commander Thesick was in the facility's command center when the alarms started. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Sir, the security systems have failed," a technician reported. "All the prison cells are opening, and we're detecting human soldiers inside the facility." Thesick's yellow eyes went wide. "Impossible. Our defenses have been bypassed, sir. They're inside the building." For a moment, Thesick considered ordering his guards to kill all the prisoners rather than let them escape. But he knew it was too late for that. The humans had planned this too well. "Deploy all available forces," he ordered. "Stop them from reaching the surface." The processing center became a battlefield. Zephyrian guards with advanced weapons faced desperate human soldiers who would die before they let the children be recaptured. The corridors filled with the sound of energy weapons and explosions. Admiral Carter's team fought their way toward the main prison blocks, clearing a path for the escaping prisoners. "Maria, take your squad and secure the exit route," Ryan ordered. "Tony, you're with me. We need to find our kids." The battle was fierce but short. The Zephyrian guards were trained soldiers, but they were fighting humans who had become something more dangerous than soldiers. They were fighting parents. In Cell Block 7, Alex Morrison led his group of children toward the sounds of human voices. They could hear Admiral Carter's team fighting nearby, getting closer with each passing minute. "This way," Emma whispered, pointing toward a maintenance corridor she had noticed during their captivity. "We can avoid the guards." The children moved through the facility like ghosts, using every hiding place and secret passage they had discovered. Over the past few days, their small size and quick thinking allowed them to avoid most of the fighting. Sam Rodriguez carried little Katie Williams when she got tired. Danny Chun's device helped them avoid patrols. All of them worked together with the kind of teamwork that only comes from shared hardship. They reached the main corridor just as Admiral Carter's team cleared the last of the guards from their section. The reunion was emotional but brief. "Alex? Emma?" Ryan called out as he saw the children approaching. "We're here," Alex replied. "All the New Haven kids are here." Ryan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. His own daughter Megan was among the group, dirty and scared, but alive and unhurt. "Dad?" Megan whispered, hardly believing her eyes. "I'm here, sweetheart. We all came for you." Dr. Webb was helping coordinate the evacuation of other prisoner groups. Thousands of beings from dozens of different worlds were streaming toward the exits, following the paths that the human soldiers had cleared. "Admiral, we need to move," Tony Garcia reported. "My scouts say the Zephyrians are bringing in reinforcements." "How?" "Many prisoners are still inside?" Ryan asked. "Maybe 2,000. We've got most of the children out, but there are still adults in the lower levels." Ryan made a decision that would define his career. "We're not leaving anyone behind. Sir, that's going to take too long. The orbital battle won't last forever." "Then we make it last," Ryan replied. He activated his radio to contact the fleet. "All ships, this is Carter. We need more time down here. Keep those lizards busy." Above them, the space battle intensified. Captain Jake Morrison brought his ship closer to the fortress, drawing fire away from the evacuation routes. Human ships formed a protective wall around the planet, refusing to let any Zephyrian reinforcements through. "Morrison, you're taking heavy damage," warned another captain over the radio. "My kids are down there," Jake replied as his ship shook. "From enemy fire. I'm not backing off." In the processing center, the final groups of prisoners were making their way to freedom. Human soldiers formed a defensive line, holding off the Zephyrian guards while civilians escaped. Lieutenant Maria Garcia was wounded but still fighting. "That's the last group from level 3, she reported to her brother. "Good. Fall back to the exit point." The evacuation took 3 hours. When it was over, every prisoner in the processing center had been freed. Thousands of beings who had given up hope were now breathing free air under an alien sky, but the cost had been high. Several human soldiers had died in the fighting, and many more were wounded. The children they had come to save were safe, but the price of their freedom had been paid in blood. As the last shuttle lifted off from Kepler 7's surface, Admiral Carter looked back at the burning facility. War Commander Thesick was probably still alive somewhere in that complex, but it no longer mattered. The Zephyrian Empire's biggest slave trading center was in ruins. The children were safe. The mission was a success, but Ryan Carter knew that this was not the end. This was just the beginning of humanity's reckoning with the Zephyrian Empire. The aliens had taken human children. Now they were going to learn what happened to species that made that mistake. On the shuttle carrying the New Haven children, Alex Morrison sat next to his sister Emma. Both of them were exhausted but safe. "Think we'll ever see those aliens again?" Emma asked quietly. Alex looked out the window at the human warships filling the sky around them. "I don't think they're going to be a problem much longer." He was right. The Zephyrian Empire had days left to live. The children were safe, but humanity was not finished with the Zephyrian Empire. 3 days after the rescue at Kepler 7, Admiral Ryan Carter stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance. watching as the largest human fleet in history assembled around him. Over 800 ships had gathered from every corner of human space, all with the same mission: end the Zephyrian Empire forever. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 12 different Zephyrian worlds," reported Lieutenant Brad Thompson. "They're offering to release all prisoners and pay damages." Ryan's face showed no emotion. "What's our response?" "Standard reply, sir. You should have thought of that before you took our children." The human fleet moved through Zephyrian space like a force of nature. World after world fell to the advancing armada. The aliens fought back desperately, but they were facing something they had never encountered before: an entire species united in righteous anger. On the planet New Haven, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his garden, watching his twins Alex and Emma play with their friends. The children had been home for a week now, but they were different. They had seen things that no child should ever see, and survived experiences that would have broken many adults. "How are they doing?" asked his wife Lisa as she joined him on the porch. "Better than I expected," Jake replied. "Alex has been teaching the other kids survival techniques. Emma is keeping a detailed journal of everything that happened. They're strong, Lisa. Stronger than we knew," Lisa nodded. "Danny Chun's parents told me he's been building communication devices. Says he wants to be ready if anything like this ever happens again." Smart kid, they all are. In the distance, they could see the orbital defense platforms that had been installed around New Haven. The colony would never again be defenseless against alien attack. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned that attacking human children brought swift and terrible consequences. The final battle of the war took place at Zephyria Prime, the homeworld of the Empire. War Commander Thesic had gathered the last of his forces there, hoping to make a stand that would force the humans to negotiate. He was wrong. The human fleet arrived in overwhelming force. Admiral Carter brought every ship he could find along, with reinforcements from Earth, Mars, and dozens of other human worlds. The orbital defenses of Zephyria Prime were impressive, but they were not designed to face an enemy that cared nothing about their own losses. "Sir, the Planetary Defense Commander is requesting terms for surrender," Thompson reported. Ryan looked at the image of the alien homeworld on his screen. Billions of Zephyrians lived there, most of them civilians who had nothing to do with the slave trade. For a moment, he hesitated. Then he remembered his daughter Megan's face when he found her in that prison cell. "Tell them they have 1 hour to evacuate all civilians from military targets. After that, we begin bombardment." The message that went out to the Zephyrian government was simple: "Your empire took our children. Your empire dies today." Thesic received the ultimatum in his command bunker deep beneath the planet's surface. Around him, his staff waited for orders that would never come. The war commander who had started this conflict by capturing human children now faced the complete destruction of his civilization. "Sir, what are your orders?" Sub-Leader Vrak asked. Thesic's tongue flicked out to taste the air one last time. He could smell fear, desperation, and the bitter taste of defeat. "Broadcast a message to all remaining Zephyrian forces. Tell them to surrender unconditionally." "Sir, it's over, Vrak. We lost this war the moment we took their young ones." The bombardment of Zephyria Prime lasted exactly 1 hour. Human ships targeted every military installation, government building, and slave-related facility on the planet. When it was over, the Zephyrian Empire ceased to exist as a political entity. But Admiral Carter was not done yet. He ordered his fleet to every world that had ever participated in the galactic slave trade. Mining colonies that used forced labor, pleasure worlds that bought exotic slaves, merchant stations that traded in sentient beings. All of them received visits from human warships. The message was always the same: the slave trade ends now. Anyone who buys, sells, or transports slaves will answer to humanity. Within 6 months, the galactic slave trade collapsed completely. Species that had bought and sold other beings for thousands of years suddenly found themselves facing the possibility of human intervention. It was easier to find other ways to get work done. On Earth, President Helen Ross signed the Galactic Protection Act, establishing humanity as the official protector of enslaved beings throughout the galaxy. Any species that wanted human protection from slavers could request it, and human fleets would respond. "We're not building an empire," Ross explained to the Global Council. "We're building something better. A galaxy where children can grow up safe." Dr. Marcus Webb published his study on the war, titled The Zephyrian Mistake: Why Threatening Human Children Led to Galactic War. It became required reading at military academies across the galaxy. The Zephyrians made a fundamental error. Webb wrote, "They assumed that humans would react like other species, trading resources for offspring. They failed to understand that humans are mammals, pack animals with protective instincts that have been refined over millions of years of evolution. When you threaten human children, you don't trigger a political response. You trigger a biological one." The few surviving Zephyrians scattered across the galaxy, becoming refugees on distant worlds. They carried with them a warning that they shared with anyone who would listen: never, under any circumstances, harm a human child. 1 year after the rescue, the children of New Haven gathered for a memorial service honoring the soldiers who had died saving them. Alex Morrison, now 11, spoke for all the survivors. "We learned something important," he said to the crowd of colonists. "We learned that no matter how far from Earth we go, no matter how alone we might seem, we're never really alone. Because we're human, and humans take care of each other." His sister Emma nodded, "Especially the children." Captain Tony Garcia attended the ceremony with his sister Maria, both of them wearing the medals they had earned during the rescue mission. Tony had been promoted to admiral and put in charge of the new Child Protection Fleet, a permanent force dedicated to preventing another Zephyrian-style incident. "Any regrets about what we did?" Maria asked her brother as they watched the ceremony. Tony looked at the happy, healthy children playing in the colony square. "None at all. The galaxy is safer now." In the Outer Rim territories, pirate gangs that had once raided colonies for slaves now avoided any system with human presence. Word had spread about what happened to species that threatened human children, and even the most ruthless criminals decided that some things were not worth the risk. The Andromedan Trade Federation, which had once been neutral on the slavery issue, passed new laws making slave trading punishable by death. The Stellar Republic banned slavery completely and requested human assistance in freeing their existing slave populations. The galaxy had learned a simple lesson. Humans might seem peaceful, but they were still the apex predators of their homeworld. And the one thing that could turn peaceful humans into something terrifying was a threat to their young. War Commander Thesic spent his final years on a remote mining world, working as a common laborer. He often thought about the decision that had destroyed his empire. 23 human children seemed like such a small thing when he ordered their capture. He had been wrong about that too, on New Haven. As the sun set over the peaceful colony, Alex and Emma Morrison raced their friends to the playground one more time. Their parents watched from the porch, grateful for every normal moment. "Think they'll remember what happened?" Lisa asked her husband. Jake smiled as he watched his children laugh and play. "They'll remember. But they'll also remember that, when something terrible happened, the entire human race came to save them." Above them, the defense satellites kept their silent watch. Throughout the galaxy, human ships patrolled trade routes, ensuring that no other children would suffer as the Zephyrians had made these children suffer. The message was clear to every species in the known galaxy. Humanity's children were under the protection of humanity's fleets. And humanity's fleets had just proven exactly what that meant. The Zephyrian Empire was gone, but the lesson it taught would last forever. Never threaten human children, not if you want your species to survive.